artists come out of Sacramento area in the past few years. Now a group called Smith, Martin, and Shaw is trying for the charts. After playing to sell-out crowds in Northern California for months now, they're about ready to release their own single called On the Road. The group was rehearsing at the Bill Rase Studios recently, and here's an example of their styling.
Tomorrow night it's San Francisco, 30 miles from here. I hope to meet a fallen angel somewhere in between. I'm alive by Sunday morning, I'll be in New Orleans. Surprised to find if my mother ever knew, well, I think she'd lose her mind. For I'm a fine, upstanding young man, play rock and roll, steal your teenage daughter's heart and electrify her soul.
As it is in concept now has been together for about 2 years. We've known Jim for that long, and the only new member that we've had is Donna Proctor, and she's been with us about 6 or 7 months. And it's just, it's been so good. I mean, things have been happening to us as if we're part of a mainstream type of progress that's really just kind of carrying us along. The music's good, we're happy with each other, we're enjoying the whole experience, and things just seem to happen in a very positive fashion for us.
Playing Keno in my dirty jeans, but I stay alive by sniffing feathers and getting on the city. And though they think I'm in my 20s, I'm really 33. If I don't make it rich someday, I think they're gonna bury me.
Second feature coming up in a little while. Plus, we'll discuss the world of King Kong after these important words. Let's take a little movie test here for just a second. What movie have you seen more than any other film? What pops to your mind? And if that movie were playing, let's say on television tomorrow night or playing in a local theater, you'd go see it again and it wouldn't bother you at all, even though you've seen it maybe a dozen times, okay? I can think of just 2, but I think that your answer was this one.
open lights on Broadway. Kong, the eighth wonder of the world!
Wild, weird, wonderful, the stuff for which movies were made. Adventure, to make you wonder if it's true, while your eyes convince you that it is. Truly, the thrill of thrills. Don't miss it this time.
I get excited every time I see that trailer. Mick Martin is with us, a film fan. Was I right? Maybe Gone with the Wind and King Kong seem to
I
pop
think
in,
so. I
pop
really
into
think
my
so.
mind. How many times have you seen the original King Kong?
Oh, at least in the 25 times at least.
Yeah, but you're really into films. Probably the average guy in the street has seen it.
A dozen.
Yeah.
I'd say a dozen.
It's quite common.
It's an event when it's on TV.
What about, let's talk about the old Kong and the new Kong, and just, there's so many books out now, and of course the movie opens up next week, and what made the old Kong a great movie?
Well, for one thing, it was the first time that that kind of thing had been done. A giant monster on the screen, looking as if it was 80 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's a fast-paced action film that really holds your attention. Yeah. So it's...
Well, it came out in the 30s. It must have really been unbelievable for somebody to go into a theater and see something like that.
It was another one of those instances where people were passing out in the aisles.
Mm-hmm. The Willis O'Brien, of course, did the animation.
Mm-hmm.
And
it was directed by Ernest Schoedsack and Melville Cooper, I think.
Who could forget those guys?
Oh, yes.
You know, in reading, I believe it was in this book here about King Kong. We'll show some of these because you might want to catch some of these because it's very unusual stuff. I think the two guys you mentioned who created Kong were in the pilot seats in the final scenes that they actually killed Kong. Remember the planes, the airplanes in the sky? That was one little piece of trivia that was pointed out. Here's a paperback book that is out on the new Kong, and here's one that has an interesting title, The Girl in the Hairy Paw, and I can't hold any more books.
I think we should say that the making of King Kong is the best.
You
if someone
feel
was
it
going
is?
to go out and buy a book on the film, that would be the best, I think.
Okay, we'll talk about this just a minute because you've read the article on American Film that's just come out, talking to the director. And here's the best one, according to you, right?
Yeah, it's the paperback version.
Making of King Kong, illustrated very well, just packed full of stuff. There's a fascination with this film just for everyone, I guess. What do you look for now in the new Kong?
Oh, I'm fascinated about a number of things. As far as the realism is concerned, nowadays when you see the old King Kong, there's a certain quaintness to it, and yet you can look at it as a classic, so you can enjoy it as something that doesn't, like Tarzan, that doesn't necessarily have to be technically believable. But I think the new one's going to have to be awfully good to grab an audience these days, because people are getting jaded. Look at The Exorcist. I mean, how much farther can you go than that?
Now, with the new one, of course, the old one was Willis O'Brien. It was just a little 18-inch high monster for the most part. Then I believe they made a hand, a giant hand, and what else? A giant head, was it?
There was a head and a chest. It came to the chest. But that was it. That was all. And this one's an 85-foot mechanical monster that has, I think, 16 motions it can make with its hands and something like 20 different expressions. And they had a huge crowd in New York as this monster was actually walking through the streets of New York, and people were watching it.
Okay. I think let's take some scenes here, some stills. We'll have a film clip for you next week, and you'll see a close-up of the monster who looks very realistic. Yeah. And he's how tall?
85 feet tall.
85. There is Jessica Lange. She'll play the new Fay Ray part, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is her first movie role, by the way. Talk more about her in just a second. I think he likes her, according to that. And this is from the original poster, or from the film. Interesting thing is that the original poster, the original artwork had just jet planes.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone said, hey, Kong couldn't compete with jet planes, and they put in helicopters. And
I understand that they've also added some superimposed jets, so film fans should look to see if there are any noticeable superimpositions when the jets fly in at the end.
Okay. And here's the scene that you talked about. In New York, they asked for 5,000 extras to show up. 30,000 showed up for this scene where Kong falls off of the, it's not the Empire State anymore, is it? Trade building, World Trade Building?
Yes, World Trade Building.
In fact, there are even pickets around the Empire State Building to bring back Kong to where he rightfully belongs. And there's the final picture that we have for you. Jessica Lange, interesting thing, they auditioned people from all over the world for this part, and they picked her. She's a New York model. It'll be her first film role. What an unbelievable American dream.
I wonder who they named her after. They called her Dwan in the movie and gave her no first name. So that's something for film buffs to ponder, why they did that.
I don't know. Good question. Maybe someone out there knows the answer. Another thing, when Kong has received so much publicity in New York, when they asked for the 5,000 people, of course, 30,000 showed up. But they also ran like a poster in the New York Times, and just put a little line at the bottom. You could hardly read it. If you would like a duplicate of this poster, please write to so-and-so. 25,000 people wrote.
They were inundated, yes.
Let's look at a poster. This is from your collection?
Leon Ricky's collection.
Leon Rickey, another film
Sacramento.
fan. This will show you the original poster. And I understand it is worth, what, $300–400 today, the original Kong poster?
Well, it's getting into the thousands now. It's the same thing as happening with movie posters that happened with comic books. It's getting totally out of reach for most people.
Wow. And if we could take there's Fay Ray, Robert Armstrong, Bruce Cabot. Take a look at the new poster in just a minute. And there are several versions of the new poster, as I mentioned. The original one, I guess, has the strictly jet planes. And then we have some helicopters being added.
There's one that's 10 feet tall that's three-dimensional that I saw in the lobby of the Madison Square 4 Theater.
Yeah, we'll be giving that away to some lucky fan. I know.
Oh, yeah?
I would like to win that myself.
Oh, well, I'm going to try to get in on that.
All right, let's talk about that for a minute, because we will be giving away all this stuff. I know you're going to be out there, and that's next Friday at the Madison Square 4 Theater. That's on Madison.
And Manzanita.
Right, and at 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock. There'll be two different time starts because Kong is so big it'll be in two theaters. We will be giving away King Kong candy bars. I have a drawing for them because we expect a huge crowd, and we'll draw for this stuff. We have pictures, candy bars, that huge King Kong cutout statue that you'll see in the lobby. In fact, it's there right now, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Okay. We will also have pictures to give away, and I will also do the drawing for our King Kong statuette that we've been showing the last few weeks. We will draw one of the winning postcards at the Madison Square 4 Theater next Friday. That's opening night all over the world, I guess, for
Yes,
Kong.
it is. Simultaneous.
7 and 8 o'clock. That's another thing. Movies normally open up in a regional area, or I think Jaws had one of the biggest openings. This Kong thing will open up, they tell me, in 2,500 theaters all over the world the same night. So it should, if the movie has anything going for it at all, it should be one of the biggest grossers.
Well, I think the amount of interest on this film is so immense that there's no doubt there's going to be, I believe it's going to be a success, and that it's going to make back its money. The only other current film, Christmas film, that I can think of that stands to compete with it is the new Sherlock Holmes movie, The 7% Solution.
Yeah, and we'll be showing film clips of that in the near future, and I had a chance to talk to Nicole Williamson, who plays Holmes, and he has some very interesting comments for you Sherlock Holmes fans. Okay, here are those censored scenes from the very first King Kong movie. They took these out, never put them back in. They were lost for years and years and ended up in a garage in Philadelphia. And have you ever seen, Mick, the movie Intact?
I think they re-released it just about 2 years ago with these scenes in it. Although it was really obvious that they had put them back. They weren't able to get them back in so that it flowed very well.
Okay, now they were taken out because in this particular scene here, they considered this too sexy for the times. Kong, of course, doing a little bit more than flirting with Fay Ray, and he disrobes her. And from some of the scenes I've seen from the new movie, why Kong is a little more aggressive with Jessica Lange.
Well, this was just before they came out with their own, the Hayes office. I think it was an almost a government control office. But the films were getting very, very paranoid about leaving and things.
Yeah.
That's a great scene.
That's the nose-picking scene. Of course, that's even banned today. Here we get into the violence. Just too much violence. Kong coming into town there.
A little snack.
Yeah, there's a little hors d'oeuvre. I think we see a close-up of that later on. And this coming up is Excedrin headache number 12. That hurts. They cut this out. Too much violence. Now we have movies like Death Wish on television. There we go. That hurts. Fight back here. A little dental floss after that one. But he was mad. Kong was mad. I forget why he was back in town.
I think they took the girl away.
Yeah. And they take a guy's girl away, why? Got another scene here.
Ultimate peeping Tom.
This one here, I think, again, is the violence. He gets the wrong room. She didn't have time to bring room service, and who would believe her anyway? I've heard of guys dropping girls before, but this is ridiculous. Say goodbye. He's got the wrong one. And down she goes. Very realistic scene, but just a little too much.
The effects were really marvelous.
Okay.
Really marvelous.
Now, real quickly, Mick Martin, we can read your horror movie reviews in the Sacramento Union.
Almost every Saturday.
Mansion of the Doomed was just in this morning, was it? Okay. And also, if you want to talk to Mick sometime about music or horror, here's his latest album. Tell us real quickly where your band is appearing.
Oh, at Cassidy's and Davis, Shire Road Pub in Fair Oaks, the Stony Inn downtown in Sacramento. In the Bay Area, is anywhere they'll have us. We
Great.
play rock and roll.
Okay. And we'll see you next Friday, and hopefully a lot of horror fans, King Kong fans, at the Madison Avenue Square.
Madison Square 4.
We're going to give away all kinds of King Kong stuff. It's next Friday night, the big opening of Kong. Be there at 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock.
I wouldn't miss it.
Okay. All right. I want to thank a couple people before we get into our second movie. That would be my cigars and hairstyling. Gary Smith did not do the cigars, but he did my hair this evening right above Ellis's Restaurant. And Gene Sausnick and his House of Windsor Cigars made this segment a little bit easier for me. Okay. Thank you, Mick Martin. Let's get into our second movie. All this in World War II. With me is Mick Martin, who's a film reviewer for the Sacramento Union, also a Sherlock Holmes fan. What have you heard about that movie? Anything?
Just that everybody's fascinated with how they managed to come up with the idea for that kind of a combination. Rolling Stone said it was interesting, you know. I've got to see it for myself before.
Okay. We're going to talk about Sherlock Holmes tonight, and I know that we want to get your feelings on the new movie 7% Solution, but I want to show you an interview I did with Nicole Williamson, who plays Holmes, and then we'll see a little footage from the 7% Solution. So anytime with that Nicole Williamson interview. Were you a little apprehensive about taking on the role of one of the most famous characters of all time, Sherlock Holmes?
Well, I must say, yes. I think everybody who was involved with it, the making of the film was, I think much more difficult was Alan Arkin's job in tackling Freud, and Robert Duvall, who also had to cope with, you know, the British accent and playing Watson. I think their problems were more manifest and very much more difficult than mine. I think I got onto the line of the character quite quickly. As I'd never seen, and there are 154, I gather, Sherlock Holmes films in many languages. I'd never seen one and had never read any Holmes stories or novels, books. So therefore, I was able to come to it rather freshly and begin dealing with this mythical character and concentrating on the man and not the myth.
Well, what are you waiting for? You are very brave with a revolver, but are you so confident with a saber? If you want the young woman, shouldn't we fight for her?
Throw it down, infidel. They will die to reach you.
Not before you do. I do not believe in this method of solving problems, but you leave me no choice. Call them off.
Okay, a clip from the 7% Solution, a new movie about Holmes, and with me is Mick Martin, who's a Sherlock Holmes fan, and I would imagine it would be very difficult to satisfy the Sherlock Holmes people with any sort of new film or any sort of new actor.
Well, I find that I'm an exception because I'm always open for the new interpretations. I enjoyed the Basil Rathbone films, but I thought they were too stylized. And being a fan of the books, I looked for a Watson like Robert Duvall's Watson, and that was probably the most satisfying thing about the movie, is that he's not a bumbler, he's not comedy relief. He, you know, what he was for Holmes was someone who kept him in line, even in the books.
Yeah, he never had he was the bumbling fool in the books at all.
Oh,
right?
no, not at all. He was the man who interpreted Holmes and wrote the books, so he couldn't have been as silly as he was if he was, the chronicler.
Speaking of books, you brought in just a little bit
just
of
a couple here
just
and
a
there.
couple here and there, right? This is, of course, what the movie was taken from, and the premise is that Dr. Freud and Holmes get together, right?
And Holmes is cured of his addiction to cocaine.
Yeah, and of course, that's
this is
played by
another
Alan Arkin.
pastiche. It's called Chronicles of Solar Ponds, and what 7% Solution is taking the characters and doing them outside of what is considered the normal Holmes stories, like this one is here.
And that's called a pastiche?
Right, a pastiche. This was written by the son of Arthur Conan Doyle, who created the character, and John Dickson Carr, from notes that he left in his safe for future Holmes novels, because there's an incredible audience for Sherlock Holmes. And this is an excellent book. Nicole Williamson mentioned something about like 150 films. Well, this book has all the films. Anybody who's interested in finding out what kind of films were made on Sherlock Holmes, Raymond Massey played Holmes, an incredible amount of people played Holmes.
John Barrymore?
Right, and it's called the Sherlock Holmes File. This is a rare William Gillette special edition of The Hound of the Baskervilles, one of the original novels. And this is a whole book of pastiches, and this was outlawed by the Doyle estate. They didn't want it put out on the market. It's got O. Henry, Mark Twain, all sorts of people writing Sherlock Holmes stories. And these are a couple of recent paperbacks where now the Doyle estate has opened it up to anybody who wants to write about Holmes. And The Giant Rat of Sumatra is the story for which the world was not prepared. And The Adventure of the Peerless Peer, he teams up with Tarzan.
Okay. Now, what is for someone, I think we all know who Sherlock Holmes is, of course, but I guess he must be the greatest literary figure of all time.
I think if you took a poll, he'd probably be the best known and the most enjoyed. I mean, as a child, my parents wanted me to read, and you have all these books in school you're supposed to read, but it was only when I found a Sherlock Holmes book, and this is true, you know, that I really started enjoying reading, because the Holmes stories are fun, and I think that's why it's engendered so many films and sequels and other books.
What is the fascination with the Holmes character, would you say, to make him live on that long?
I don't know. He's so egocentric and rude. I think it's only the affection that Watson writes of him with that makes the reader like Holmes so much. It's Watson's attitude towards Holmes and his enjoyment of his baffling exercises in mental prowess. You know, and it's fascinating. And, but it's the love, I think. I think it's the love that was between the two men, you know, the enjoyment of each other's company and the excitement of the chase.
Now, you've just returned from University of California, Davis?
Right. They were showing what I consider to be one of the best Sherlock Holmes films, The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes, which was directed by Billy Wilder. And it's like the 7% Solution. The only problem was it was made in 1970, way before its time.
Okay. We have some of your posters we're going to show from your collection. Would most fans say that these two guys did the Holmes, let's say, did they hype up the activity for Sherlock Holmes with all their...
Most definitely. Well, there was a definite revival in '39. The Holmes films were sporadic up until that time, although there was a series by Arthur Wanter in the early 30s. By the end of the 30s, it was definitely Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce. And this, by the way, to get one of these posters, you have to go to Los Angeles. The fans have collected up all these posters all over the country, and unless you go to New York or LA, you can't find them.
Is that right?
Yeah, they're
I know
gone, all the
that even
Rathbone
the posters for the 7% Solution are real difficult to find today because the Holmes people just clamped down on them.
Well, the film companies were telling me that there were two films this year, King Kong and 7% Solution, that they were deluged with people who wanted stills, who wanted posters, who wanted anything that they could get on them, and they were reticent about giving them out to anyone.
Now, there are people who take tours back to London and to England to trace the...
Well, there are people who write letters to Sherlock Holmes to 221 Baker Street, and they finally, I think it was about 4 years ago, set up an actual 221 Baker Street where people could go, and I think there's even a little museum there now.
Well, who was the Holmes character? Was he taken from someone?
Well, originally what he was one of Conan Doyle's teachers. He was an instructor that fascinated Doyle as a youth because he never...
Nothing on my mind, cruising the highways and making good time. The green of the trees and the softness of your hair. I know where I'm going 'cause I'm already there. Hey mama, wanna ride? I got the world in my pocket when you're sitting by my side. Feeling alright, you know I really feel fine. The summer's in the air and I'm rocking down the line. Taking all the good, surely makes me smile. Put your arms around me, let's really let go. It's all very easy when you're moving with the flow. Hey mama, wanna ride? I got the world in my pocket when you're sitting by my side. Feeling alright, you know I
now the Orion Express, tremendous group.
Called Misty Daydream.
On my door, seeing all the right daydreams. I can't seem to say what for. Now the gray clouds drift slowly leaving, take a rainbow from the sky. All the love just taken from me, no time even to ask why. All the misty daydreams drifting through the jet stream. Did I leave my reason? Wasted on the floor, lift the chain that bind me. Time to lock that will free me, free from all these seasons. Roast upon the shore. Take control eventually. You say yes, I say no. You say you really, really don't care. Cause all these misty daydreams, they can take you anywhere. All misty daydreams, drifting through the jet stream. Did I leave